Alright, Squire to Moon. I've been in DAG for about 8-9 years. One of my roommates recently posted a video about Florentine, two-weapon fighting. And there's a lot of misconceptions in there I kind of want to address, but I'm not calling him out. A lot of these are experience-based things, and so I wanted to throw my 2 cents out there. I've been meaning to make a video on it for a while, and I think this is appropriate time. When talking about flow or any style in DAG, there are lots of different versions of the style, different weapons in the style, different ways people fight, different ways they learn. If you learn how to fight down here in kind of the Midwest, or Midwest, I don't know, down to where I'm at, it's going to be different than fighting out in somewhere like, I don't know, down in Florida. There's just a different caliber of fighters, different culture, different things that float around as far as the style goes. I'm going to go over the things that in my experience I see are beneficial to Florentine, and how I picked up Florentine, and what my mindset is, and kind of how I go about doing it. So let me check this real quick. All right. Basically, Florentine for me, I was reading some Dungeons & Dragons books, basically, you know, Fangor Forest, Drisdorn was my first introduction to Florentine, and really gave me the inspiration to want to fight Florentine. That was about 5 years ago. So I ended up making some curved PVC scimitars and going at it for a little while. And I learned a lot doing that. Basically, one of the things I learned was my personal stance. This leg forward, my right leg forward, and my weapon's out like this. Now, this isn't based on Driss's fighting style. This is what I found worked while I died a bunch learning to fight some Florentine. This is the way I do it. I point one weapon out, one weapon slightly behind, almost in kind of an X, but it's a separated X. What this does is this lets me keep a threat, but keep my weapon centered. The idea is when I strike, one is still centered, and then when I come back, the other one comes back to center. And so when I keep moving, I kind of stay inside my box. Now, there are times to span out, but spanning out is when you're being attacked by multiple people. Basically, I want to always have one weapon pointed at the person I'm fighting. The other weapon can point at them too, but I really want my main hand pointing at them. It's a personal thing. I developed it that way because I liked it. But you'll see most people fight like this, kind of low, weapon centered like this. I find this leaves me a little open to stabs, but also I come from a longsword background, so I want my back straight. And my legs bent, my butt a little lower. That's a personal thing. But you'll see a lot of fighters kind of mimic that old red fighter style where they're a little lower, arms tucked in, and they're here. Obviously it's going to change, but I've seen that a lot. Just doesn't do it for me personally. It's effective. You've got a good guard here. You can push in and out against stabs. So you push out and throw a cut over here. Those are good too, but that's not what I do. So I stick my weapons out here. I push on people, kind of like a fencer's movements. Push in, push back. Now, when I push in on somebody, I'm trying to threaten them. When I back out, I'm being pushed by a sword and border or somebody else. I want to trick people into thinking I'm moving straight forward and straight back, and then I'll sidestep. So the first few parts of my engagement are going to be me pushing in on them, pushing it on them. I'll throw a couple quick jab stabs at them, and then I'll throw a cut, depending on what they do. All the basic cuts that I throw are stuff you'll learn single blue. So got this one, all the basic cuts. Keeping it basic from the stuff you learn from Sword and Board. If you learn, from single blue, if you're learning single blue and you don't switch your left hand enough, it's going to really affect your sword, your Florentine. I do a lot of single blue with this kind of sword, and I switch to my left hand a lot. The other thing is, this is a stuck thing from D&D, but I prefer a lighter sword in my left hand and a heavier sword in my right hand. Just a personal preference thing. This is a heavier sword. It's 1/2 inch fiberglass, about 19 ounces. This one is counterweighted carbon. So it's around the same weight, but the weight balance is way back into my hand compared to this one. I'm going to have more strength in my right hand from Sword and Board and Florentine, from Sword and Board and Single Blue than I will in this one. And like I said, maybe that came from D&D, but it's ingrained into my head and I like it better. But basically, my test is I need to be able to manipulate my weapons at the same speed with both of my hands. This way, I don't have one lagging behind the other. Because my left hand is not, my muscles in this arm are not as good as my muscles in my right arm. So that's the first part of it. Second part, footwork. Footwork in any style is going to matter more than pretty much everything. If you can't defend your legs without putting your weapons down here, unless you're fighting a polearm, like if you're fighting something your length or a red, you need to be able to move your legs out of the way and not block them with your weapon. You can, and there are times to do that. But in my personal opinion, you need to be able to do that. Same thing with Sword and Board, same thing with Single Blue, same thing as a red fighter. You can't be coming down here to block or blocking here because it throws your stuff off. Now, you can, there are times to do it, spears, polearms, but against most things, you shouldn't be doing that. Personally, it's what I think. Now, I'm not going to go into any specific styles, it's all dependent, but when you're fighting, you need to maintain threat with both weapons. You need to make that person think that at any time you can kill them with either weapon. This is not specifically defense. This is not specifically defense. They're both defense and they're both offense. When you throw a cut here, you need to be able to defend with this one. If you throw a cut here, you need to be able to defend with this one. Unless you are moving. So when I fight multiple people, I do a lot of spins. I do a lot of quick chop, chop, run. I'm trying to be maximum threat to the maximum amount of people around me, and I spend more time moving than using my weapons as a defense. In most fights, most skirmishes, you need to be moving, not standing still. So I will chop out here, block, chop, block, and then run. Or I'll chop with both weapons and run. It all depends on the situation that you're in and what you can do. A lot of times, I know somebody else's range, so I don't need to block his weapon. A slight sidestep and a leg chop will be just as effective as if I pushed in on him and chopped his leg. But instead, I still have the free weapon to attack somebody else. When I'm fighting multiple people, you spread out, but not like this, like this. I'll get to this in a minute. This is, I need to be moving so that these two people or these three people are lined up. So that I only have to fight one of them at a time. Now, that doesn't always happen. Usually you'll have to fight 2 or 3. So when I'm fighting 2 or 3 people, I'm going to be chopping at both people as I'm leaving. And unless they're pushing on me, most of the time people don't push as a group unless they're really, really good. Most people are going to push by themselves and they're not going to realize they left their team behind. That's perfect because that means I can keep moving and fight that person one at a time, and they kill him. His buddy chases me. But that's not always how it happens. If you're playing Kill Your Killer on the field or free-for-all, there are times where people are going to be surrounding you. You need to fend off this guy, and run. You need to not stand here and try to fight both these people. Doing this isn't going to help you. Doing strike, and out, because here's the thing. If I strike this person or strike at this person, what are they going to do? Are they not going to defend themselves? Usually they're going to defend themselves by some degree. Now, you still might die, but you need to maintain a threat and you need to move. Moving is going to be way more important than maintaining a threat to everybody. You need to maintain the threat to as many people as you can and then run. Now, the second part of my Florentine fighting was double reds. I went through a phase with Miyamoto Musashi's book of 5 Rings. And what he talks about is when you want to learn to fight with 2 swords, you pick up a heavier sword, i.e. a full-size katana instead of a wakizashi, in your left hand. So, instead of using a short sword, now this isn't how I actually fight now when I need to use Florentine. Something more like a flat-bladed red, but this is how I fight now. But, because this is what I'm carrying usually when I need to. Usually I'll be a sword and boarding and this will be on my back at events. Or I'll have this as my main weapon and this will be in a side sheath. Basically, it just depends. If I'm fighting multiple people, I will pull this and I'll fight like this. But I didn't get to this just by happen chance. I started reading that book, right? And what he talks about is that maintaining threat to multiple people and essentially having the extra reach. Now, the way I fight now is I do a lot of spins, a lot of movement. This, I have the forearm strength to lift these two efficiently. Now, what this does for me is now I outclass most every style and range. And so I'll move. I've got almost a 6-foot wingspan. Put both these out here, I have almost a 15-foot wingspan. Anybody in 15 feet from me when I'm using these two is now a target. Now, is this effective at events? I haven't tried it at events. I'm not going to do like double swing reds at events yet until I'm very comfortable. Been doing it for about 2 years now. I haven't hit anybody in the head, but that's because with this, I'm keeping it way low. Same style though. If I'm fighting one person, I'm doing this. Fighting multiple people, it's a little wider. I like to relax myself a little. I'm not in any range of anybody when I'm doing this. Goal, move, keep moving. Somebody chases you, swipe here, throw a stab, over the head. A lot of these are kinetic swings. I'm letting the swing arc create the force for me, which means these shots are a little painful. I'm not trying to use hardly any muscle effort. Swinging these two is a lot of drain. But I practiced with this for, oh God, a long time. Because I think it's cool. Makes me feel like a badass. So I personally like using 2 reds. It's not optimal. So now you'll see me tend to use my 55 and my 30, 40, it's probably 38. These are what I'll use Florentine when I'm actually Florentining. This gives me that range. This gives me a more close-up weapon, and I find it works out great. But moving is going to be more important than trying to use either of these as a defensive-only weapon. Maintaining threat with both weapons is important. These are very, very simple styles. Not simple styles. These are simple ways of maintaining a Florentine style that's not going to get you killed. Remember to keep moving. Don't let people rush you. If somebody rushes you, keep moving. You're a Florentine. You're a Florentiner. You're a skirmish fighter. You don't need to be on a line. If you are on a line, you need to go somewhere else. Now, if somebody locks you in, boxes you in, you're weak. You have 2 weapons, but not a lot of actual defense. A spear fighter is going to take you apart. A red fighter, you probably got more chance against a red fighter, but he still outranges you. In a situation where you're boxed in on a line, he's going to push on you and just blast at you. And there's nothing you can do because if you step out on the line, his buddy's going to stab you. Other part, I have knocked a ton of people's weapons out of their hands who are trying to punch block me as a red fighter. This is a carbon red. I have 1/2-inch square fiberglass reds that'll just blow through a lot of people's weapons. You try to block me with a graphite shaft, I'll probably break your sword. Not because I intend to, but because of the way you block. If you punch block with this, and I hit the strong of your weapon, that's the strongest point of your weapon, hitting the most amount of force coming out of my weapon. I have a 5-foot lever. You have a 2-foot stick, and if it's made of anything super light that's not a newer carbon, it's probably gonna break. Or you're gonna lose it. Enough force here, this thumb is not the strongest thing. That's why you see a lot of guys push out so all that force goes into their arm. If you don't push out or meet me halfway, I'm gonna take that out of your hand. Most red fighters of any significant skill have the ability to do that. But my favorite thing to do is come here, push forward or backward, whichever way I feel the need. If somebody pushes back on me, I'm backing up. Side step left. My long ass red's gonna go for that leg. He goes to strike. That's my simple bread and butter one. I go boom, boom. Here, block the incoming strike. I have a free sword, and I can come around. That's one guy. Multiple people, I'm creating distance. I'm throwing wide shots out here because 6 feet away, 7 feet away. It gives me plenty of time. They go to swing at me, I come in, and I'm backing out. Fighting multiple people, I'm trying to throw a shot at every person who comes close to me. And if I feel like they're too close, I'm going to block and defend as quick as I can. One defense. My one defense needs to be able to stop at least 2 or 3 swords, which essentially means block, cut. So the block is going to block one shot, the cut's going to come out and attack the other person who's coming at me. I'm attacking into their attack. This arm is going to attack another person. And then I fucking run. I get the fuck out. I run away. When you're fighting 3 people, run away. And so basically I'm running, and I'm just gonna swing behind me, make sure I'm not being chased, run away, and spin behind me. I prefer the longer sword for that. You don't have to, but that gives you a lot of distance. As a Florentiner in a skirmish, I just see a lot of people get pushed in on by a good sword border and they get fucked. A lot of people get pushed in on a red fighter and they get fucked. If you don't have that range and you can't maintain that distance, you're fucked. I am not a master at Florentine, but I can give 3 tips. Keep moving, maintain threat with both weapons, and don't use either one as a specific defensive tool. And by one of them being a defensive tool, you've now only made one of them offensive. They both are defensive and offensive weapons. Thank you.